The story of the Neo Geo starts in the early 1970s. In 1973, businessman and former boxer Eikichi Kawasaki acquired an electronic engineering company and renamed it Shin Nihon Kikaku, which means a New Japan project in Japanese. There's not much information on what the company produced during this time, but it is thought that they made electronic components and parts. As the 1970s rolled along, Kawasaki saw that the coin-op arcade business was growing and wanted to be part of it. On July 22, 1978, the company reorganized and became Shin Nihon Kikaku Corporation and started designing coin-op arcade games. That same year, their first game was produced. It was a clone of the popular arcade game Breakout called Mekon Kit. They produced a series of these games, with one called Battleship Yamato, based on the popular anime series Space Battleship Yamato. In 1979, they released a Space Invaders type game called Ozma Wars. And in 1980, Safari Rally was released, a maze type game. By 1981, SNK was doing well and decided to open up operations in the US in Sunnyvale, California, to distribute their machines in the North American market. They hired on John Rowe to run operations in the US. Also, in 1981, SNK released their first successful game, Vanguard. It was distributed by Century and Cinematronics in North America and by SNK themselves in Japan. It was a scrolling shooter like Scramble or Super Cobra, but with differences that made it stand out and made gameplay fun and addictive. After the success with Vanguard, SNK went on to create over 20 more arcade machines up to 1986. The most popular of these was Akari Warriors. It was so popular that it was ported to several home computers and game consoles such as the Commodore 64, Atari 2600, and the NES. It was during this time that John Rowe left SNK to form TradeWest and was replaced by Paul Jacobs. In 1985, SNK opened a second American branch called SNK Home Entertainment. It also became an official third-party licensee for Nintendo's Famicom and NES. In 1988, SNK started to design a new type of arcade machine. It would be based off SNK and Alpha Dinshi's own M68000 arcade boards using the Motorola 68000 processor. SNK took it a step further with their version, the SNK M68000, which added enhancements to the original SNK Alpha Dinshi board. From here, Alpha Dinshi engineer Eiji Fukatsu created what was called the Neo Geo hardware. He added more enhancements to the SNK M68000, such as the Yamaha YM2610 FM sound chip with dedicated sound RAM and a Z80 coprocessor for sound. On top of that, sprite scaling was added and stored on ROM in scaling tables, and support for more memory was added. It was also capable of playing more than one game that the user could choose from, calling it the MVS or Multiple Video System, a similar idea that Nintendo had with its Player's Choice cabinets. Which, speaking of Nintendo, SNK released its first home console game made specifically for the NES and was not an arcade port. This was Baseball Stars. This was followed by Crystalis in 1990. By 1990, SNK created another division of the company called Neo Geo, which all the MVS technology would fall under. Development of the new MVS machine was finished and the system was released. It was the first system to use the name Neo Geo. The MVS part of the system was essentially designed by Takashi Nishiyama and featured either 1, 2, 4, or 6 game configurations. The games themselves were relatively cheap at $500 a piece, saving arcade owners money from buying multiple machines for thousands and saving floor space in the arcades by having several games in one cabinet. This made the MVS system very popular with arcade owners, and the amazing games made it popular with the gamers. Some of the early MVS games included Baseball Stars Professional, Nom 1975, Top Players Golf, and Ninja Combat. After saying for years that they didn't want to enter the console market, they did. The Neo Geo AES, or Advanced Entertainment System, was developed from the MVS system using the same components minus the multiple cartridge slots. As advanced as the AES was, it came with a price. Being released in Japan first in 1990 and then in North America in 1991 for the price of $649.99. That was a lot of money then. In fact, with inflation, that comes to just over $1,500 in 2024 money. Just crazy expensive, and priced a lot of people out of buying one. But this was never intended to be marketed to the consumer. When it released, it was supposed to be sold to commercial customers for use as rentals, such as at hotels and motels. However, people that played the systems liked them so much, they were willing to pay the huge amount of money for the experience of the arcade at home. It was at this point that SNK changed their marketing strategy for the AES and expanded the marketing to the regular consumer. SNK didn't want to give the consumer a dumbed-down arcade experience like other console manufacturers of the time like Nintendo and Sega were doing. They wanted to give people the true arcade experience at home. And really, that's just what they did. The games were the exact same games that were in the arcade. They even developed a memory card that could be used between the AES and the MVS systems for game saves and character saves. Gamers loved the console, if they could afford it. At the time, it was considered the best console you could buy. I was a teenager at the time, and I can tell you everybody was talking about this console. But nobody had one. It was like the holy grail of gaming, and Neo Geo knew it. Marketing was just a couple of low-budget commercials telling you where to buy it. They had no intention of throwing a bunch of money into its commercials or its marketing.
You wanted more power, arcade-like 4-dimensional graphics, and 15-channel stereo sound. Neo Geo is no stopping us now.
But time waits for nobody, including game consoles. As technology advanced and the next-gen consoles were due to come out, such as the PlayStation and the Saturn, in 1994 they released the NEO GEO CD in Japan. This console was released as a cost savings to the consumer. Instead of having to buy the pricey AES cartridges, now you could have the same games but on the cheaper CD format. But even before it launched, complaints about its load times became a huge issue. The NEO GEO CD was released in North America in 1996, but sales were slow. The Neo Geo was being passed over for the 3D graphics of the PS1, N64, and the Saturn. Plus, Sega's next-gen 3D system was on the horizon, the Dreamcast. The end was knocking on the door for the Neo Geo. In 1997, both the AES and the Neo Geo CD were discontinued. NVS production lasted a little while longer, but ended as well. Well, that brings us to the end of the Neo Geo story. The Neo Geo will always be known for being a powerhouse in the early 1990s console market. Some say this console was the beginning of the end for the arcade. Do you guys agree with that? The Neo Geo had a 7-year lifespan, from 1990 to 1997, selling just under 1 million units with the AES and CD combined.
Game over, man! It's game over!